What's up, everybody? BigSweetC here with you. Got a special little video for you today. If you happen to have missed it, today we're talking IGN and journalism in general. So, in case you missed it, IGN.com put out their 25 best PlayStation 4 games recently, and I was going through the list and it made me think of something because, you know, here on the channel, we don't just talk about video games, but we talk about how the industry affects society in general, right? We put the smaller pieces, the tree, into the forest, if you will, right? The point of my channel is to show you guys the forest so you don't get stuck on a tree that you really love. So we're going to use this IGN.com article to kind of really explain how journalism in this country has taken a nosedive and is pretty much a dying art nowadays. And they do that very specifically because they don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to believe a very specific narrative, and it's very sad to see, because the idea of journalism was to expose stuff so you could then make up your own mind and decide for yourself. And it has quickly become a way for the machine to propagandize you into believing a certain narrative without the idea of you actually coming to that conclusion. And we'll kind of go through this, and I'll show you how journalism reporting, so to speak, has taken a nosedive and fallen off the cliff. So again, we're talking about, they just ranked their best 25 PlayStation 4 games, and normally we'd start at the bottom and go to the top, but we're just going to kind of go through the list, and I'm going to pick some out that I either agree or disagree with, and then I'm going to explain how it relates to the whole thing. So at number one, they have God of War. Now, I have no qualms with their number one pick. I think God of War is a fantastic game. It was actually one of my favorite when we played it that year. I still think it is a fantastic game. I've actually, I shouldn't say recently, but within the last few months, I've gone back to do some more stuff that I didn't finish. And it is a very fun game to play. The story is very, very good. And the gameplay is phenomenal. So right off the bat, God of War at number one. Not really one that you can have your favorites that may or may not be number one, number two, number three. But I don't have a problem with them putting God of War at number one. Then we get into to number two, and we kind of start seeing some issues. So at number two, they have The Last of Us Part 2. Now, we're going to hold off onto this one because, first of all, that's an awful ranking. Terrible. Absolutely god-awful bad. But we'll get more into The Last of Us in a little bit, so we're going to skip this one. At 3, they have Bloodborne. Again, totally fine. I loved Bloodborne. I think it's fantastic. It is a PS4 exclusive, and it was a very fun game for me to play. No qualms with them with that at number 3. Then we start getting into some other stuff. 4, 5, and 6 go as The Witcher 3, Persona 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, GTA Online. Persona 5, technically right now, I believe, is actually a PlayStation exclusive. So take with what I'm about to say with a grain of salt on Persona 5 specifically. Now, I know Persona, the franchise, is not PlayStation specific. So we're going to kind of lump Persona 5 into the Persona franchise. And we're going to do that just for the time being because Persona 5 is eventually going to be ported to PC and Nintendo Switch. So right there, Witcher 3, Persona 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, GTA Online, they're not even PlayStation games. They're at 4, 5, and 6 on the greatest PlayStation games. But if you literally substitute PlayStation with Xbox, or PlayStation with PC, or PlayStation with Nintendo Switch, I'm not sure if GTA or the Witcher 3 is on Nintendo Switch yet, but these are games that are available on other platforms. It is not a PlayStation game. It is a video game that you can play on PlayStation. But you can also play it on Xbox. You can also play it on PC. So right there, if you're talking about your 25 best PlayStation games, you are being very, very misleading and factually incorrect when you put on games that are not PlayStation games. There is a very big difference between a game you can play on PlayStation and a PlayStation game. The reason I bought a PlayStation is because of their exclusivity in certain franchises. I can only play God of War on PlayStation. I can only play The Last of Us on PlayStation. Bloodborne, Spider-Man. I can only play these on PlayStation. That would make them a PlayStation game. But if I can play it on PS4 or Xbox One or PC or Nintendo Switch, those are not PlayStation games. Those are video games you can play on PlayStation. They continue down the list. Horizon Zero Dawn. Spider-Man is at 8, okay. Control, Uncharted, Red Dead 2. Again, not a PlayStation game. Resident Evil 2 is on the list. Metal Gear 5, Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, Overwatch, Dreams, Tetris Effect, Apex Legends. These are not PlayStation games. These are not PlayStation games. These are games you can play on PlayStation, but they are not PlayStation games. This is a total farce. You could literally substitute 25 best PlayStation games with 25 best Xbox games. This is malpractice at its finest, meant to make you believe that it is something else. This is propaganda. They do this all over the news. All over the news. They lead you into something, and then they give you something completely different. This is not journalism. This is not reporting. This is writing an article and then having them put it out like it's something important. The other day, I saw, yesterday as a matter of fact, for me, I don't know when you're watching this video, but the other day, we'll say, Vox put out an article talking about how Kamala Harris pulls Joe Biden to the left. Kamala Harris is a center candidate. Joe Biden is a right of center candidate. Just because they team up does not mean the party is moving to the left. If anything, it's actually moving more to the right. Very misleading. And then they go ahead and they throw a picture on top with like Bernie Sanders, which adds to the illusion. You are meant to believe that they are telling you one thing when they are not. They're telling you something completely different. This is fake news. This is misleading. And this is false advertisement. We see it all over the place. We see it all over the place. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. They all do this stuff. They write this article, best of, and then they fluff out stuff that doesn't really mean anything. And you're meant to interpret that as a very specific ideal. None of these are, very little of these are PlayStation games. Ghost of Tsushima is on there. I believe you can play that on PC as well. Why not Sekiro? Where's Sekiro? Now, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, The Last of Us Part 2 is fucking awful. Like, it's terrible. Just the first game is so good. a fantastic story about a young girl who's the only survivor of this pandemic going on, and they're on their way to figure out how to cure humanity. The second game is a boring, cliche revenge story with several terrible people as your main character, brought to you in a way where the writing is so bad that it literally stops you from wanting to play the game again. I've gone back in and tried to replay it, but it is not good. The writing is awful. The story is boring, cliche, and old. Yet that's number 2. Again, this is them trying to sell you stuff. This is not them doing active investigative journalism to bring you an informed, newsworthy article. This is meant to go out there and get you to buy something. It is misinformation. If they would have put The Last of Us Part 1 on there, then you can argue that that's a good list. But Part 2 is fucking terrible. Look at all the reviews before the game actually came out. Everybody said that it was this masterpiece. The writing is bad. There's literally nothing added to it that makes it any different than the first game, except for the dogs and your little sensibility. It's terrible. It's terrible. They're not going for honest truth here. They are going to sell you something. This is not the 25 best of. This is, we played 25 games on PlayStation, and these are the ones that we liked in this order. Blatant false advertising. Blatant false advertising. And they do this across the board. Again, I'm pointing out this article on IGN.com because we are a gaming channel, but this is a bigger issue than just video games. This is atrocious. This is propaganda brought to you as intelligent criticism. This is manufacturing consent. This is making it okay for you to go out and buy garbage because they have a justifiable reason to do so. Well, IGN says it's a good game, so it has to be. The Academy Awards gave Crash Best Picture, so it's got to be a good picture, even though that movie is literally about the whitewashing of every race in this country. It's pathetic, it's terrible, and it needs to be called out. And that's what I'm here for. That's why you come to this channel, because this is a fucking terrible list. Last of Us Part 2. Apex Legends. Apex Legends. So, now here's the thing. Not only did they, one, not include only PlayStation exclusive games, but then on top of that, they actually put in games that are literally meant that a 5-year-old could play. These are the most basic, fundamental games that a child could do, and they consider it one of the best. A lot of people play it because it's free. It's not that great. It's not even the best Battle Royale game. It's not even the best of the Battle Royale games. They got Final Fantasy VII Remake down towards the bottom at 19, even though it's better than Dreams. I've never even heard of that game. They got Ratchet and Clank higher than that. Resident Evil 2. Again, Resident Evil 2 is a remake. How can it be the best if the game came out years ago? You're telling me that games are so bad nowadays that re-releasing a game from 10 years ago automatically makes it one of the top 20 in today's society. You're telling me that games have gotten so bad that a remaster of a game that came out 10 years ago is one of the best ones out there right now. That's literally what you're saying by putting Resident Evil 2 on there.
then Ashworth should be powerless.
Red Dead 2 is on the list. That game, the solo player, I'm sure, is great. I mean, if you've played the new update to Red Dead Online, it's trash. They just expanded on the trader role, called it the Naturalist, and was like, hey, I hope you guys are okay with this. Garbage, man. Garbage. Garbage. Tetris Effect. Tetris Effect. Tetris is a Nintendo game, ladies and gentlemen. Just so you know that. Oh man, Monster Hunter World is on here. It's the most boring game I've ever played in my life. Like this, it's just bad. It's just bad, and it's literally like they just went through Twitter, found the first 25 games that people were talking about, and threw them in a list. And this happens across the board. This happens across the board. You know, watch Fox News, and they talk about the Black Lives Matter protests as rioters. You know, not protesters, the rioters. They do that so you get a very specific perception of them. Same thing here. They're going to call this game good, hoping that you go out and buy it. I mean, they needed The Last of Us Part 2 needs to be on this list because their second week sales tanked. They had a super grand opening weekend, and then everybody played the game and realized that they completely lied to us about it being good. And the second week sales plummeted like 80%. On the flip side, Final Fantasy VII Remake is so good that Sony literally credits 50% of their first quarter success. Sony, the company, credits 50% of their first quarter success to Final Fantasy VII Remake. But that's number 19. Last of Us Part 2 is number 2. But what do I know? I'm just a low sub count YouTuber. What do I know? But that's gonna do it for this one. Do yourself a favor, do me a favor. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did happen to make it this far, because hopefully you liked what I had to say. Do yourself a favor. Hit that notification bell as well, so you know when I do drop a new live. A new video here on YouTube. Either way, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me. Wishing YouTube, that's you. Wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. As long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. Sweetness, signing off. Peace.